Good morning, students. Today we will be going over everything you need to know to play Draven in Season 13. We will cover all possible runes and when to take them, as well as many different build options, giving you the tools needed to adapt to any game state and carry your team. First, let's go over Draven's identity as a champion. Draven is a very aggressive playstyle ADC. He wins most lanes because of his high raw damage early on, and it's important to use his role as a lane bully to get ahead. The pros of Draven are: he is a strong laner. He has very heavy AD damage. He is extremely difficult to stop once ahead. And he has pretty decent mobility. The cons are that he is very vulnerable to CC. He is difficult to master. He is not very good when playing from behind. He relies heavily on his passive cash-in. He has relatively short range for an ADC. Now that we know his role in the game, let's go over his abilities. Starting with his passive League of Draven. Draven gains his fans' adoration when he catches a spinning axe or kills a minion, monster, or tower. Killing enemy champions grants Draven bonus gold based on how much adoration he has. This is the bread and butter of what makes Draven such a hypercarry champion. His passive is what makes or breaks people as a Draven player. Next, his Q, Spinning Axe. Draven's next attack will deal bonus physical damage. This axe will ricochet off the target high up into the air. If Draven catches it, he automatically readies another spinning axe. Draven can have two spinning axes at once. This is where all of the difficulty of the champion comes in. This is his signature ability and requires a high level of mechanics to use effectively. One tip to make this ability significantly easier is to use your S key to stop in place and grab your axes. Remember, the axes will go in the direction you are walking. His W, Blood Rush, gives him increased move speed and attack speed. The move speed bonus decreases rapidly over its duration. Catching a spinning axe will refresh the cooldown of Blood Rush. This is what allows him the mobility to escape or chase down enemies. Next, his E, Stand Aside. Draven throws his axes, dealing physical damage to targets hit and knocking them aside. Targets hit are slowed. This further increases his ability to escape or chase down with the knock aside and slow on enemies. Lastly, his ultimate, Whirling Death. Draven hurls two massive axes to deal physical damage to each unit struck. Whirling Death slowly reverses direction and returns to Draven after hitting an enemy champion. Draven may also activate this ability while the axes are in flight to cause it to return early. It deals less damage for each unit hit and resets when the axes reverse direction. Executes enemies who have less health than Draven's number of adoration stacks. This gives him a presence on the entire map and the ability to carry games solo. Since there are no proper combos for Draven, we will review some general tips. Make sure to auto-attack between all of your abilities to maximize damage. Recast your ultimate just before it hits your target, so there is less reaction time. You can use W just before catching an axe to get two uses off since it refreshes when you catch an axe. You can reposition your ultimate return with Flash to catch enemies off guard. Next, we will cover runes. By far, the most popular keystone right now is Lethal Tempo. It synergizes very well with Draven and is the best option for beginners learning him. With this keystone, take Triumph, Legend Bloodline, and cut down against a tanky team or coup de grace against a squishy team. For secondary runes, take Eyeball Collector and Treasure Hunter. For minor runes, take Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and either Armor or Magic Resist depending on your matchup. You can run this page every game while learning Draven. Once you feel more comfortable, you can experiment with Hail of Blades and Conqueror. We recommend taking Hail of Blades when you have an engaged support, and Lethal Tempo or Conqueror with an Enchanter or DPS support. When it comes to Lethal Tempo or Conqueror, take Lethal Tempo for lane power, and take Conqueror for late game power. The rune page for Conqueror is the same as Lethal Tempo. With Hail of Blades take Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collector, and Treasure Hunter. The minor runes are the same for all builds. Now on to builds. There are many different builds for Draven, but if you want one to use every game to learn with, go Essence Reaver into Infinity Edge and then Immortal Shield Bow. You can build whatever you want after that. Now for more in-depth build paths. For Mythics, you can go Kraken Slayer, Immortal Shield Bow, or Eclipse. In general, take Eclipse when you are snowballing hard, take Kraken into tankier teams, and Shield Bow into squishier teams. If you get a couple of kills early and can afford a serrated Dirk on first back, always buy it and go into the lethality build. The lethality build synergizes very well with the Hail of Blades rune page but can be run with any runes. In most builds, you will buy Essence Reaver first. If you are going Shield Bow, you will go Infinity Edge second into Mythic and then Situational Legendaries. For Kraken, you will go either Essence Reaver into Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, and then Kraken, or Bloodthirster first into Infinity Edge and then Kraken. For lethality buy Eclipse then Lord Dominik's Regard or Collector. Finish with more lethality and situational legendaries. For boots, always go Berserkers unless their entire team is AD or AP. Then you can buy defensive boots. Now we will go into tips for the laning phase. Draven is an early game champion and excels in the laning phase. There are many ways to play Draven, but we will focus on two of them. The first one is hard pushing the lane and shoving the minions to tower, constantly applying pressure to the enemy bot lane and not giving them a second to breathe. The second one is freezing the wave near your tower, denying minions an XP while also drawing the enemy jungler's attention. One of the essential parts of the laning phase is tracking enemy jungler. If they are pathing topside, you can play more aggressively. If they are pathing bot side, you need to play more passively. The aggressive playstyle should be used when you're versus an easy matchup. Ezreal, Kai'Sa, Vayne, and Sivir are examples and are all easy to deal with, and you should apply as much pressure as you can. Look for trades at all times, push them into tower, and punish them for every CS they take. Try to take as many plates as possible and the tower as early as possible. If done successfully, you should have a huge gold lead due to the CS and plate advantage you got. Remember that you don't always have to kill your opponent to win lane. This playstyle is the hardest to pull off but the most rewarding. Keep in mind that you have to keep track of the enemy jungler at all times. You should have a more passive playstyle if you're under threat, such as, facing Samira and Nautilus with Elise as their jungle should indicate playing safe. If you decide to play aggressively into a lane like this, you will likely fail or die many times, which is the worst thing you can do on Draven. However, just because the enemy team has kill pressure on you does not mean you can't win lane. But if you still don't manage to get an advantage and can't seem to find openings to kill your opponent or gain a lead, try to go as even as possible. You can still be useful if you find a way to consume your adoration stacks with League of Draven later in the game. For the mid game, you should rotate mid as soon as you take the enemy bot tower, or they take yours. Mid lane is the safest place for most ADCs in the mid game as it is shorter, and they can rotate to either side of the map if a fight breaks out. Teamfighting with Draven is pretty straightforward. It all comes down to kiting your axes the right way and not dropping them. Also, try to identify threats in teamfights. Who can CC you? Who can kill you instantly? Now you have all the information you need to carry on Draven. If you found this helpful, make sure to check out our complete fundamentals guide in our bio and follow LOL University for more.